one thing I've realized, and a lot of other toy commentators are talking about, is that they're not making toys for kids anymore, right? These companies, they're making them and pricing them for adults now, right? And so they're for people like us, right? That are nostalgia, looking to basically try to get what is called, like, get bigger money out of us, right? So they're doing prices like $50 for a friggin' figure, and you kind of think, like, I mean, and I'm talking about New Zealand dollars, right? And there's other ones in the US, they're doing $100 for a giant man. They were talking about, like, from Marvel, and doing these silly things that, like, really, like, when you look at what's happening to comics is getting dumbed down and getting sexualized because I think there's a boogeyman, boogeyman invisible customer base out there for those books, but there isn't. It's been proven there isn't. People don't want that sort of stuff to give to kids. Whereas these guys are on the other end, toys, they're marketing the kids out of it, and the toys are so pricey, their parents are just not bothered anymore with it. So they're ending up on, like, at what is it called? You guys got their is it not what is it, Arby's? No, Dollar Marts and stuff like that. What is the shops out there called? Where they just they just chuck all, like, wholesale, stuff like that, and they end up there, and
so
all these toys.
We got a store that's called, like, Ollie's, and it is just it's the overstocked. It's the overstock stuff, from the from Marvel, and from the main, well, from the other stores, like Target, Walmart. It's their overstock. They send them, they sell it over to Ollie's, and it really hurts. It hurts me. It really hurts me a lot, because I literally bought a case of action figures from my distributor, and walked into Ollie's like the day after I received my case of action figures.
Yeah.
And they're in Ollie's for half the price of what I'm selling them for, and what I have to sell them for. I mean,
it's recommended required price, right? You can't undersell under that as a retailer,
right? And it's just kind of crappy. And I was like, well, these were brand new. What the heck? Yeah. And it's like that all the time. There's, especially with the GI Joes, the GI Joe classified line right now is it's almost just going straight over to Ollie's and going straight over to these overstock stores, which is just kind of stinks for the independent guy, for the small business guy. But
I think this is the thing, right? I think they want to get rid of the smaller guys. I think they just want to have big box stores now.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about that, like, for me as a former retailer, I'm kind of thinking that it's easier for them to have big stores to deal with than individual little stores, and so you end up with, like, box stores in little towns now, right? Because you can have everything that one plays, and you don't have to deal with, like, all these individual people. You just deal with, like, oh yeah, that's our toy dealer. Yeah, that's our merchandiser. That's it. Okay, send them everything, and this is what. And on the one hand, it's good for, I guess for the big the mega core, But the problem at the end is their product value gets so diminished. Like, I'm looking at this here. This is a New Zealand franchise, EB Games, which is part of the GameStop, in the US, but in New Zealand, it's EB Games, and it's rebranded for New Zealand owned kind of thing. But it's GameStop, right? So they're still affiliated with GameStop, but EB is like electric, what do they call it? Electronic boutique. That's the word. Yeah. So you look at all this, right? So look at this Mandalorian figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. You've got, it's $25 down to $12.50, yet nobody buys it, right? I have one there, right, from way back, because I just thought I'll have that figure because I like the character, right?
Right.
Because it's the armorer, and she's always, pounding away metal or whatever. She's this tough female character, and I think she's got, you know, kind of a really cool character, just like Gina Carano's character, right? It's really cool. Everything about that character is great because if I remember right, she's one of the ones that saved him or so on, you know. And so you got to have, you know, if you got to have Mando, then you got to have her, and then you got to have Gina Carano because it's just kind of the, you know, and then you got to have the Grogu.
You don't have to have, apparently you don't have to have Gina Carano any longer, but.
No, exactly. But I want to get to that one soon because I've got some hot stuff from Gina to talk about later. But as you can see, like it's 50% off and nobody's buying it, right? So then you come to this one here, right? So here's something else. And I know this, so the soda can ones, right? Look at the soda can ones, man. Right? $34 down to $9. Nobody's buying it, right? This is a What If Kahuri vinyl. Who the hell's Kahuri, right? Seriously, you know, right? What if, you know, this whole range of things. They're like, who's Kahuri? A new character introduced, right? Nobody cares about her, right? A new character added, right? So stuff like this is just junk, really, and it's landfill. And as we know, that this is from like Funko Pop. So Funko Pop did a whole bunch of dump, right? Right. Even here, they've got like, you know, this is a Boruto, right? Part of the Naruto series, right? That's $5, man, right? From $30 retail. And of course, this is like New Zealand prices. So if you're elsewhere, you know, this is like probably about, I don't know, maybe about $2 US, $2.50 US, $3 maybe, you know.
Wow.
So when you look at stuff like this, I mean, like, look here, you've got another, you know, you've got Run DMC down to $9 from 26. That's a third of the price, you know. And people just, you know, right now, oh, this is a McFarlane, right? If I remember right, Disney Avatar, right? Series down to $9 from $35.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're, you know, say if you got your G.I. Joe, if it fits or not, I'm not sure. You could buy this as a figure to play along with your, you know, with your G.I. Joe character or whatever character, you know, whatever figure you've got. And you could use that as part of that set. But this is what's come down to is like the market for toys has been so diminished and so saturated with rubbish that people,
which is garbage. I mean,
yeah,
just garbage. You know, it's like, you know, all right, anybody out there and that's watching us that likes these figures, you know, you like what you like. You know, more power to you. But the soda can vinyl pops, they might as well just stay in the soda can vinyl pops and just go right to the landfill for me, because
exactly
there's just there's nothing there for me. There's just nothing there that's neat. You know, that's.
I mean, I picked this up for $5, right, or something like that, and only because like that, right? So you've got these little things in it, but that's all, right? So they come in a little thing. You've got the can, and the novelty of this is the can, right? The fact it's in the can. But are you going to pay $30 New Zealand for this? And the
why is it in a can?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of it being in a can?
Right. And it's this sort of like, you know,
I would have been more, you know, if they blew, you know how you remember the bubblegum machines, where the toy machines where you'd stick your like 50 cents in and it would push out this little plastic ball type bubble thing, and you open it up and there's a little rubber toy inside there, you know, and you know, as a kid you loved to get them, but you know they were throwaway toys, you know, they were gone probably 2 hours later. You lost them. But if they blew that up to about this big, had the same thing, you know, and then put a little thing in there, then I would understand, like, okay, I understand what they're going for that, you know. And but those things I just don't get it, unless it's a cultural thing that they're bringing from somewhere else.
Yeah, but I don't remember seeing this in Japan, right? I don't see this in Asia. Like the ball thing, it's a huge thing in Asia, and it's a big thing, and you know, the whole was the, what do they call, like the vending machines, right? So
Right.
the vending machine thing in Asia is huge. They have a, they do, like, they actually have independent creators, toy creators do that as well. Like you get limited run stuff. They do that as part of the vending things. I mean, in New Zealand, it's not a big deal, but I know in Asia it's huge, and I'm sure in America it'd be huge as well. But it's just, I think, see, if this was clear, if this was a clear thing, as a clear plastic thing, I'd be more interested, because then if I display it, people could see inside it, right?
Yeah.
And it'll be actual, you could like open it up. Yeah, now it looks great, and I can keep the can and stuff. But it's
Why don't
no
you just make
point
the back?
anything
Why
else.
don't you just make the backside clear? You can turn it
Right.
around.
Exactly. And you could have this in the front, right? On, and it's just, there's things that these people, I think the design work has much to, much to be thankful. It's like Funko, after a while, Funko, the novelty wears off because you can't do much with it.
Very
And
fast.
it's the same thing with this. It's like after a while, the novelty wears off because you can't do much with it. Now, if you got something like this, right, you can pose it, you can play around with it, mix, do stuff with it. You can pull it apart, which is something that, some customizers are doing right now, which is like actually, pulling apart these figures and recustomizing them to their own thing. So I bought a box, not a box, a couple of bags of, figures this week. They're actually parts and pieces of the Marvel Legends series, right? And you could like customize your own set, which is what I did with this, as you guys saw last time.
Yeah.
Right. But, because you can, it takes a bit of work, but you could, fit another head on top. But, it's if you're going to create something that just stands there, there's no toy, playability with it.
Put a speaker in it. Put a speaker, put a Bluetooth in it, something. I mean, just give me something, that makes me want to purchase it. I just and this is legitimately tongue in cheek. I am more power to you if you like that stuff. If you like that stuff, more power to you. I like stuff that people don't understand. Why do you have so much G.I. Joe stuff? Because I loved it. I love it. If that's something that you love, then more power to you. But I just think that the company that is creating that stuff is saturating the market and doing more harm to the toy collecting than it is doing good, and all, in my opinion, because it's making those, it's doing what Beanie Babies did in the 90s.
The bubbles burst, right? I like Funko.
The bubble will
bubbles
burst, and no one, and people will be stuck with hundreds of these figures and nothing to do with them, and not able to do anything with them. Tried and true properties is the way to go, in my opinion. Things that have good staying power. Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man. They have staying power. Even when they saturate the market, people still go after them. And you can even go down to Super Mario Brothers, things like that. But when you have they did the same thing in the 70s, right? With Mego action figures. Mego actually had a ton of licensing. They were able to get Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk. I mean, all of these figures, and they made these figures. And they had a little bit of a resurgence in the early 2000s. And now the old Migos are worth something. The original Migos in the 70s are worth something because they didn't overdo it. They didn't oversaturate the market because they were marketing towards children that were playing with the toys. There was a playability with those toys. When they came back in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, they flooded the market a little bit, and nobody really cared about them.
I think, there is. That's what I mean. Like, so because they know there's we kind of aged up a bit and we're able to afford certain toys that we couldn't afford as kids, and we have a bit more money to play around with, gather together, save. We know how to save now, whereas with kids we didn't care about saving.
We like to
Didn't
say
even know what saving was. Yeah, and so we're able to buy bigger products. So you get something like $200 friggin' Batman figures that you can afford if you were a kid, and or you can get like these friggin' amazing like that Back to the Future, character you showed the other week, that you could have these amazing things with it that you couldn't get when when you're younger in the 80s. So one of the things that I picked up a little while ago is this Dracula Transformers, right? And we talked about how Transformers are putting out these die-cast friggin' figures that do nothing. They don't even transform.
Right.
But here you've got like Hasbro putting out a Universal Monster series. This is Dracula as a Transformer, right? But it comes in a VHS style thing, right? So you basically pull it out and you display it like that, right? And which is cool. It comes with a really cool little bag, and and then the figure, and you got the little gun with it because of course, it's a weapon. And I think over here on the side you've got another I think it's a mask or something in the back. So I haven't opened it. That's one of the things we're going to open today. But the whole thing of like pricing kids out of toys, it means that those kids aren't going to be playing with those toys, which means there is no longevity built up for appreciating that IP, or that product or something that they get, like us, like we can feel nostalgia about. In 10 years, they wouldn't even have a toy in their homes. They'll probably just end up with games, like on video games. Nothing wrong with that. I have a whole bunch of them. But what I mean is that they won't have toys. That's part of their, interest, whatever. I don't know what it is, part of their collecting or part of who they are, right? So one of the things recently, I got asked last week by Carlos from New Zealand Toys and Collectibles, right? Action figures. He sent me a link saying, hey, sent me a message saying, hey, look, this lady's out here looking for people who are collectors, right? Not sure what's about. Do you want to call, ring up and find out? So I rang up. It turned out, it was Radio New Zealand, which is like the Radio New Zealand, our New Zealand radio station, right? Like the main number one, I don't know what you guys have what would be the main thing in America, right, for radio?
For radio?
Yeah.
It's different stations throughout the country.
Right. So what would be the one that sticks out? It's like if you go, what's the U.S. radio station, and you'd be like, that's the top thing that comes in your head.
We don't really have a U.S. radio station. We have different stations in each state and each city. So we have thousands and thousands of radio stations.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no national. We have like NPR.
Right. That's probably
have that's the liberal news radio, and then we have.
Right.
Like iHeartRadio and things like that are nationwide, but most people that listen to the radio are just listening to their local channels that are in their city or in their county.
Yeah. So Radio New Zealand is doing a collector's series, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things, so I was, collector series. So what she was, what they wanted to know was like, what did I collect, how long for, and why, and how did I go around getting my collections, and is what's is it expensive, what the things are, and so it made me really think about the whole idea of like what made me want to get into toy collecting. And the other thing was like, she's not just doing toy collecting, she's doing everything. So she's talking to other people around New Zealand and, collectors about, like she said, like she's a guy who collects knives, right?
Right.
So, you know, like distinct sort of like collectible, like people like artists, what do you call it? Like people who actually make individual, you know, one-off pieces and stuff like that. And so you've got a whole, you know, whole range of collecting series out there. But so I spoke to her for half an hour, and we're talking about these things, and I'm like, you know, then it come, you know, she asked me specific questions like a normal person would do, right? But like there was one question that I kind of like it to go, yeah, I don't want to give this much information, this part of the information away, because it means I'm going to lose out when I go to find something, right? So when I'm looking for hunting down stuff, because the marketplace is now getting really pricey. It's something that happened with comics about 5-10 years ago. So, you know, you've got eBay, right, in the US. In New Zealand, we have got like Trade Me, which is our, you know, it's like basically eBay for us. So early on, like say about maybe 10-15 years ago, when it first started up, comics were so cheap, right? People really didn't care about the value of them. There was no, you know, people weren't really out there collecting. They were just doing it because they wanted to fill up their fill up whatever was missing, right? They go, okay, I'm just going to buy this and fill that hole, this hole. There were a couple people who were like really being, you know, silly with the prices. American prices for New Zealand products, it's like, it doesn't work because like, you know, you can't really go, okay, I'm going to sell like something that sells on Mile High. That is the price I'm going to put on my comic. I usually go, well, if that's what the Mile High price is, then it's 50% of that New Zealand, right? Because that's more realistic.
Right.
But so, and then in the last 10 years, it got to a point where people were being really, what do you call it? Like, you know, really forcing that sort of like that easy, you know, I guess community type thing around comics, and then into like competitiveness. Like I have the best friggin' thing now. I have this, you know, and it became to me like, it was like, I have all those. I'm not going to be out there showing this off because you know why? Someone is going to freaking break into my house and take my shit, and I'm not going to be happy about that. And you're out, you know, and would you, is that something you want to be doing? Give me one moment. Yeah, I have another screen open, and so it tried to kill this screen, so I had to go over and bring that screen up. So it disappeared from this screen, went on to the second screen, and there's a third screen in the middle. Did that last week, and I was like, I freaked out. I just turned off the, you know, turned the whole thing off. But I got it this time. I understood it. So yeah, and so, you know, when you start behaving like that as a collector, people aren't going to like it. And you're going to find that people would target you just because they hate the fact that you're treating, you know, you're behaving like that out there. Especially in New Zealand, when you're in New Zealand and New Zealanders don't like showiness, right? That's one of the things that we don't do. It's about showiness. We don't have a culture of look at me, because we're, you know, we're all trying to do our thing and do something that's going to, you know, that stands out, but doesn't, you know, draw attention to itself, because we're very small. When you're a very small community, you can't do that sort of crap, you know? And I find like, it's kind of weird when people start doing that. Say if you're an American, nobody cares because it's such a big place, you know, and you're okay. You can, you know, they're not going to hunt you down or something. But if you're here, 6 people will not down, you know, 2-3 people down the road, and they will know who you are, right? Easy. And I'm afraid, I'm kind of like, that's something that really freaked me out when she asked me that question. It's like, you know, I'm like, yeah, we shouldn't be out here like showing off what we have, because especially in the sense like if you're in a small community like New Zealand, right? Because you know, and I think I'm worried that this is something that is going to become more normalized, of targeting off collectors, because of all these things coming up like this, you know, all these shows and radio stations talking about individual characters, and people talking about like, oh, how much I've got, I've got this much. So what I don't go out of my way to tell people what I have. I don't go out of my way to say, hey, I've got this specific thing, unless it's in private, unless it's with another person who's actually into collecting thing. But I find
the thing about kind of talking about what kind of stuff you have in collecting is I have a USS flag. So it's a $3,000 toy that I have sitting there.
Yeah.
Right. Somebody comes into my store and steals it. Right. Pretty sure I can find out who that person is pretty quickly because he's going to want to sell it.
Yeah.
And that, and I would assume in New Zealand be kind of the same type of thing. It'd be pretty quick that you'd be pretty quick on when somebody's, oh wow, that looks an awful lot like my toy that I just got stolen out of or somebody came in and picked up, or whatever. So I don't ever worry, it's, I don't ever worry about telling people what I have or any of that stuff because, one, I like people to know that the things exist, that the stuff is out there.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of times, I get the whole, I had a woman that I was dating that she just did not understand the collecting thing, didn't understand why.
Like my ex. Yeah.
Right. But anytime that I talked about my collection to her girlfriend's husband, their response was, man, I'd really like to see that. I'd really like to come over to your house and check that out. It was always something positive, but I can understand also being worried about
it's more like in the sense of like, is this going to create, because there's always that, whatever you think is going to happen, there's bound to someone who's going to take that idea and run it into a bigger thing. So I'm wondering like whether there's going to be like this whole idea where there's actually criminal gangs or elements going to find it easier to go, hey, you know what, you got all these people out here on groups and stuff talking about all these things. Oh, look at how valuable that is, and so on. Because the other thing is, you got conventions. People learn how much things are valued when they go to conventions about prices. I'm just worried that like, and I hope it's not a thing, right? My whole thing is I hope it's not a thing where there's suddenly something comes up where it's targeting collectors who like, my whole thing was like, I said to her, look, for me, it's valuable to me. For somebody else, it's probably worth crap. Like this thing, right? For somebody else, this is worth nothing. For me, it's pretty cool because now I have a worn out mask toy. So it's part of my collection. Now I actually have an actual toy that is part of a series I never knew I had, or I didn't know much about, but now we know about it because we're looking into these things. So that's I just hope that because people are just being silly now, and
here in Texas, we're allowed to carry guns anywhere we want to. So that deters a lot of silliness.
And I think that's a good thing, right? Because you don't want to, and that's the same thing. Like I was looking at a whole lot of things about Japan. What is it called? Like the culture in Japan, right? There's a culture in Japan about shame, right? So like you'll get people who will be on, making big, they'll be like politicians who have like done something corrupt or something. They'll be in front of the whole TV, in front of the country, crying and begging for forgiveness. That you won't see anywhere else because we don't have shame anywhere else now, right? So there isn't a society where there's a huge cultural pressure that you can't do things outside of the village kind of thing, that you can't, there's a set of rules in the community that you can't oppose or behave like a criminal. You'd be ostracized, right? Like if you were out there stealing stuff, somebody else will tell your dad and you'll get the whack and you'll be sorted. you can't do that now because, hey, who are you to tell me what I can do, right?
Right.
That's the Western mentality now. So you can have kids, walking around pretending to be gangster at age of 13 and getting shot by the cop who's off duty because they want to be tough, right? Stuff like that. But here, like, I think here it's like that mentality isn't as violent, but it's still there. Like, who are you to tell me what to do? But whereas before, like in the 80s, if somebody saw you stealing something, they would tell your parent, and you would be people would like stay away from you and go, this is not don't play with that kid, son.
Right.
This kid does that. But I find that when it comes to toys, that's why I think like this thing. It's like there is no it's theirs, let's leave it with them. If you want something, let's go get our own. Let's save up and stuff. I think that sort of thing is kind of like lost on us now. Now, I want to. You mentioned about Gina Carano earlier, so I want to bring up something about Gina Carano that came out this week, and that's this past week, in regards to. Let me just find it.
Did you get the link to my store?
I did. I put it up as well, so it's there in the chat, guys. Where are we?
Please go to my store and buy stuff.
Exactly.
I ship out very quickly.